How's everybody doing? My name is Mario Anthony Reyes. I'm at the Black Men's Mental Health Conference out here in Houston, Texas. I am your keynote speaker and poet for today, and I'm super excited to share my testimony, my message, and be a part of this revolution of Black men's mental health.
Hi, my name is David G. Daniels. I've been a G since I was born, so nobody can ever take that away from me. And we're here at the Black Men's Mental Health Awareness Conference, and I think that mental health is so important because your health is your wealth.
Hello, my name is Terrence Wright, and I'm here at the Black Men's Conference. I'm excited just to be here, surrounded with so many like-minded people, being able to plant seeds of encouragement when it comes to being able to just open up and being a little vulnerable when it comes to mental health.
Hi, my name is Trenton Davis. I'm here at the Black Men's Mental Health Conference right here in Houston, Texas. First time here. I'm looking forward to being educated, to sharing, and getting naked in front of a bunch of strangers, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
Hey, my name is Jamel Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the African American Male Wellness Agency, and I'm here today at the Black Men's Mental Health Conference, and I am so excited. I have an opportunity to share, but I'm looking forward to be poured into myself. One of the things that happens is oftentimes we pour and pour and pour, but if you pour everything out, you're going to be empty at some point. And today is a great opportunity for all of us to be filled. So I'm looking forward to an exciting event, and definitely looking forward to connecting with some like-minded brothers. And the last thing I want to let you know, brother, if you're watching this, it's okay to not be okay. And if you're not okay, talk to somebody and get with somebody. We're all better together.
Hi, my name is Garland Bennett. I am here for the Black Men's Mental Health Conference today. Glad to be here to speak to the audience. I'm sure the audience is looking forward to the panel today. I am on the panel, as I mentioned. Today I'm looking forward to not only helping the audience of the next generation save themselves first, but to just tune in and give them some insight on my story, and hopefully it can help their story in the future.
My name is Bakar Cardenas. I am excited to be here to be able to speak to people, help one person at a time, each individual at a time. So I'm looking forward to be able to reach one heart, teach one heart. Thank you.
My name is Brandon Ball. I'm here at the Black Men's Mental Health Conference. I'm really excited to see how people engage, to see what vulnerability exists on this panel, and because we're always trying to help each other and learn from each other. So I'm excited to see what I can take away, not necessarily what I can just give today.
All right, good morning. My name is Larry House. Definitely happy to be a part of the Mental Health Conference for Black Men. Here I'm be part of the Dallas Collective, and awesome opportunity here for a great cause. So I'm looking forward to everything that's being presented today, all the conversations and all the dialogue. I think is very much needed. So I'm definitely thankful to be a part of this movement.
All right, my name is Dr. Nick Hardy. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm excited today to be here at the Black Men's Mental Health Conference. This is another opportunity to speak into the lives of black men and share the message of mental health and the importance of why we should seek mental health, why it's normal, why it's something that we all experience, why we should invest in it as well too. So,
Houston, what up? I'm here to fill up your cup. I just hope you are gracious enough to fill mine. Now don't worry, this won't be no rocket science, Bill Nye, but every time I ask you, how are you doing, my brother? You say, I feel fine. Designing your reply just so we can try to kill time. Protect your wounds, to protect your secrets. Well, I'm so glad you brought your cup to fill up, so allow me to spill mine. You see, it took 41 years to realize that ego is the enemy. But the type of neighborhood that raised me, unfortunately, required that type of energy. And little by little, it starts to corrupt us mentally to the point we seek distraction in liquor, women, and weed, thinking that would bring us to serenity. That's the long-term effects of having a short-term memory. Trust me, this absent of Instagram with no captions, we carry this past baggage and defense mechanisms that we perfected as children into this marginalized system. I think I'm being assertive. They think I'm being aggressive. That's when it stops being about the message and becomes about, damn, why are you being so defensive? I mean, you can't read the room if we've never studied our lessons. Houston, how y'all doing? Outstanding. Before we start, I just want to thank Just Us, the Black Men's Mental Health Conference, for bringing me out here today, and of course, Camille Harris. That testimony you give is so sincere and dear to my heart as well. And I just want to thank you for allowing all of us to gather together. Can y'all please give it up for her one time? Now, in case you haven't realized yet, I'm a poet. First and foremost, that's always. So being a poet, I like doing temperature checks. So throughout my speech, I will be saying the words "ayo," and in response, what do they say? Aight, exactly, yeah, y'all like hip hop, don't you? All right. So, and also, if you see me come over here, I promise you I'm not posting on the gram, I'm just doing a time check. All right? So, like many of you, I was a stubborn teenager. And I remember and recall this moment in which I had my first car. It was the Wario Mobile. It was a 92 Aquamarine Saturn SL2. I was riding in style. So I'm driving this car, I'm on a date, and I stop at a light on Mercury Boulevard in Hampton, Virginia. The young lady that I was with, I see her murmuring something because if you know me, I am bumping my 90s New York hip hop at full decibels. So I see her mouthing something, so I turned the music down and I said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" And she says, "Oh, did you hear that?" I say, "Hear what?" She said, "When you stopped at the light, I heard your car squeaking." I looked her dead in her eyes and told her, "I ain't hear it, it ain't happened." A couple months later, I got to go to New York. I'm from the Bronx, originally New York in the house. New York's always in the house. So I'm in New York, going to take place in a very Merry Christmas, right? And I pull up to my neighborhood like a whole hood celebrity. Like, I was born and raised in the same apartment for 18 years. So these are more than friends, these are like my brothers. So I had a wonderful time with my family, and then the last day before I got to go back to Hampton, I'm doing what New Yorkers do. We're like hanging out on the block. You know, we snap out chopped cheeses, that's now. So we're on the block, and one of my friends asked me to take him to the store. Of course. So the six of us get into the Wario Mobile. I know what you're thinking, that's extremely Puerto Rican. It was a sedan. But we went, right? So we get in the car, and we pull off, and first thing I did, what's the first thing I did? Turn the music all the way up, right? We are bumping, I feel like the man at this moment. I feel like Pimp C, he used to shout out, right? So we're driving, everybody singing the lyrics, we're cracking jokes, it's going great. And I know that it's been several months since my brakes started making that sound. I know it's winter time and it's about 15 degrees outside of New York. I know there's residual snow on the ground. And finally, I know that my neighborhood called City Boulevard has a bend called Killer Curve. Who sees where this is going? So we're driving, headed straight towards Killer Curve, and I start pressing the brakes. Nothing happens. I start pumping the brakes, nothing happens. I panic and I pull back the emergency brake, and we're still doing about 40 to 50 going straight into Killer Curve. I look, I see my best friend Rob, his eyes are super huge at this moment. He's like, "Oh my God." We hit the curve, boop, go in the air, hit the divider, boop, laying sideways. Rob's good, everybody's in the back good. Whew, we're safe, God is good, all the time, amen. So, during this entire ordeal, the one thing that never stopped was music. The music kept playing. So I'm sitting there with my head in my hand, thinking, how on earth am I going to get back to Hampton, Virginia tomorrow with my right passenger wheel at a 45-degree angle? And all I can think about is how one snowflake can become an avalanche. That's what I want to talk to you guys about today. How one snowflake can become an avalanche, and how tending to your mental health and going to therapy can teach you how to ski. You see, we tend to look at circumstances individually like snowflakes, and they are. However, our response to those circumstances is what determines the true outcome of what's transpired. And once you start to develop poor behavioral habits and patterns, that's how you invite avalanches into your life. You see, The squeaking of the brake was just a snowflake. The music was my distraction, my stubbornness, my inability or unwillingness to approach and handle what was going on, what was wrong. Some people will call that my generational curses. And I want to be honest with you guys. I wish I learned my lesson at 19. But if you know, like you know, that's not how life works. The real snowstorm in my life came several years later. It's 2006 in May. I got to celebrate my mother and my sister for Mother's Day. We had a great time. It's my sister's second Mother's Day. And we're at this juncture just engaging and loving so hard on my 2-year-old niece. My sister was 30 years old at this time. She gets home to Virginia Beach, because she's still stationed down there, she's in the Navy, and she caught a cold. That cold evolved into a flu. That flu evolved into pneumonia. Now we're doing hospital admissions, we don't know what's going on with her. This is going on for months. She gets a misdiagnosis of fibromyalgia. And finally, from May to December, so on December 21st, my sister Tiana Nadine Reyes passes away at the age of 30 with a 2-year-old daughter. Raise your hands if you ever lost somebody too early. Now, we usually do moments of silence, but I want you to clap it up for them because they need to hear it. Now, the last exchange that my sister and I had was what happened. I promised to meet her at Johns Hopkins when she got transferred. Unfortunately, I was at the bar celebrating the fact that I was going to become a first-time father. And one drink became one too many, and I failed to meet her there. So she texted me what happened. You see, what happened was I took tomorrow for granted. What happened was I never got to tell her I was going to be a father. What happened was I had to learn to live with this regret for the rest of my life. What happened was she was the first snowflake to fall, but she wasn't going to be the last. See, in life, we can't control certain circumstances from happening to us any more than we can control the weather. And it's hard for men, specifically, to accept that no matter our education, our energy, our money, or our muscle, that we can't control everything. See, at 26, I could not resolve that in my head. So, how did that manifest? It became spending the next several months of this pregnancy blacked out drunk, snowflake. Constantly arguing with my ex-wife, snowflake. Getting arrested, snowflake. Getting divorced, snowflake. Now you can see how I responded to this situation and handling this grief has become a behavioral pattern of escapism, and now the snowflakes are starting to compound. You know, post-divorce, I fought. I made sure I got 50-50 custody of my kids. But I had to adopt a new lifestyle, a new way of controlling myself. So I adopted something that I learned in the military. It's living my life compartmentalized. So there's a compartment for my friends, there's a compartment for my family, there's a compartment for my girlfriend, there was a compartment for my poetry, there was a compartment for my career, and everybody got 100% of that, of me when I was in that compartment. But when I was in that compartment, they got absolutely zero. Now all this allowed me to do was find a way to escape and not face and handle the situations that I was dealing with. Luckily for me, because I love my kids, they were the only ones that had 100% of me all the time. Now, I realized at that point, all I kept doing was turning the music up. I was filling my life with distractions left and right, whether it be liquor, women, weed, and I had a surgery. And when I had that surgery, they prescribed me Percocet. The escape that invited in my life was so welcomed at that time. Now you can see that this addictive personality started becoming more of a behavioral pattern, right? And it got to the point that no matter how loud I turned the music, turned the distractions up, it wasn't enough. I started drinking at work during my lunch hour. I'm popping 3 or 4 pills a day, which I do not recommend. I'm sleeping in the car or the bathroom during my lunch hour just to escape because I didn't want to look in the mirror and face who I was becoming. And eventually, no matter how loud I turned that music on, it wasn't enough of a distraction. I started to feel trapped by the weight of my own decisions. And just like an animal when trapped, what's he do? Snap. That's exactly what I did. I snapped. The next thing I know, I found myself without a job or a security clearance. That is when the point in which the avalanche had fallen on me. I felt like I was suffocating at this point. Now this is when you had your aha moment. Raise your hand if you ever had your aha moment where you know that something has to change. See, I had to update my tool set. If you're lucky enough to have a father, he gives you a tool set, right? When you get your first house, you get your first house, you get your tool set, right? But you got to update your tool set as you get older. I've been using a hammer my whole life. And a hammer is great for construction and destruction. It's not so good for disassembly. And I had to start disassembling who I've become. Maybe I needed a screwdriver. So what was the first thing I did? First thing I did was stop popping those pills cold turkey. Couldn't do it anymore. Then I went to the one place where your weakness is also your biggest strength, the gym. Things started to change, and I started to understand later on when I went to therapy that I started operating and applying a method of transference. Taking all the emotions and energy that I'm feeling from one situation and I'm placing it and directing it into something productive and no longer destructive. See, I had to accept the fact that everything that has transpired post my sister was of my own doing. It was my decisions that led me here. I had to be accountable, and I had to understand the difference between responsibility and accountability. And once you understand that, you can take a step forward because the first step to grace is accountability. When I say ayo, what y'all say? Aye. You see, I would have, I could have, I should have, but I didn't. And I have to accept every consequence that came along with that decision. You see, I'm the only one responsible for my dominion. I govern it, I protect it, and when it's neglected, I will make no excuses. My brother, if you think pride is a hard pill to swallow, try acceptance. Your pride will give way to the responsibilities you collected. Stress will stretch you thin if you let it. Or you can channel your efforts into a given direction and create opportunity out of any dimension. This life that we live is not intended to be comprehensive. Your point of view will take on the bend of your prejudice. It's your self-worth that makes you the wealthiest. And the moment you understand it's your self-worth that makes you wealthy, the pathway out the storm starts getting clearer. The snow doesn't block your vision anymore. It's lucky. I got a new job and I moved to Atlanta in 2015. And when I got there, I was able to audit my past habits and recognize that I needed to go on a fast. I gave up drinking, smoking, and all nightlife. And I replaced it with the gym, poetry, and culturally relevant events. More transference. And in doing so, I started walking a path of letting my blessings gravitate towards me instead of chasing them. And while I was doing that, I stumbled upon this young lady, right? The moment I met her, I knew she was going to be my person. She was on her own spiritual journey, specifically in the absence of a man. That ain't last too long. So I watched this woman pray every morning. And when she prayed, she would do this so early, it was before I could even muster the strength to get up. And when she would get up, she would tell me about what she prayed for. She shared with me her past. She was very transparent, so I could only compliment this, right? So I told her about my time in the warfighter. Told her about my Bronx upbringing. Told her about my sister passing, and she simply suggested that I speak to someone. See, that's the moment where the soft hand defeats the hard fist. She introduced me to skiing, i.e. therapy. When she suggested this, I unfortunately was very ego-driven. I couldn't get out of my own way. I didn't understand what peace looked like. I only knew how to conquer. I didn't know how to be in concert. That's not what love does. Ayo. I know it's early, but I need more energy than that. Ayo. That's what I'm talking about. Now this is me letting go of my childhood hurt. And this, gotcha, is that very same pain bouncing back into my life like a yo-yo, or a boomerang, or a dog playing fetch. An adult that is still trying to perfect his childhood rep. You don't know the regret when you speak to your therapist and you know you failed to apply every recommended step. Your default is defense. Once you observe a glimpse of the behavior that you vowed to prevent, but we know we can't let it slip. Why? Because we from the hood, right? And we know if we let any of it slide, that drip becomes drenched, and I'd rather keep it all bone dry. The walls you built are dense, deep, tall, and wide. Now who are you mad at, God? Devilish games played in the garden of the wise will cause the untamed flames of rage to suffocate the flowers in your life. This is what trying to master your childhood complex looks like. But how do we uninstall this code that's been written so deeply into our soul? The hard work is internal and is protected by the mold, the vulnerabilities that you never showed, the secrets that you never spoke. My brother, that courage is built on fears of old, due to emotions that we still don't know how to emote. And ultimately, the walls you built for your protection will become a coffin for your lessons. The past is meant to provide you with perspective, not direction. That's why the windshield is much larger than the rear view. See, wishing upon a star for so long will have you sitting behind bars, making you a prisoner of your own perspective, robbing you of the gifts of the present and those that love you most of your presence. I never want you to rob those that you love of your presence, the gift that you are. The minute you start to take accountability for yourself and start tending to your mental health, that's when you're able to look in that mirror and see past your initial reflection into the you that makes you feel ashamed, that you hid for so long, that you have suppressed down. And all I want you to do is bring it out. Recognize where it's been. Have that conversation. Find out what triggers it. And once you're able to identify what triggers it, I want you to always remind yourself that when triggered, you're the one that holds the gun. You see, a lot of us start to feel real comfortable in anger. It's as if it's the only emotion that men are allowed to have, that they expect from us. But through therapy, skiing, I've learned that anger is a byproduct of how I usually really felt. How I responded when I felt unheard, disrespected, undervalued. Whenever I felt too vulnerable, I immediately responded with anger. I'm sure I know where we at. And I get it. No one wants to admit that we're broken. No one wants to admit that we are in need of refinement. No one wants to admit that the wear and tear of life has us headed right for killer curve, ready to crash. And it's very hard to admit when other people are dependent on you. Let me ask you, my brother, who can you depend on? The brakes don't squeak on my car, nah, only everybody else's. That's what we like to tell ourselves. But I'm here to tell you, place aside that pride and ego and take accountability, because they do. All right, we're going to do a quick exercise, okay? Are y'all still with me? Yes. I feel like I lost you, I don't know. All right. So first, we're going to do a breathing exercise. I want everybody to close their eyes. Even if you're filming. You're going to take a deep breath for 4 seconds. You're going to hold for 4 seconds. And exhale for 6. I'm gonna do this 2 more times. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. Now on this last one, I want everybody to think about the last time that they were triggered, that they overreacted, and ask yourself, what was my true emotion? And if how you responded in that moment got you to your desired result. Finally, when you think about that, I want you to think about all the blessings that you've had this year in the perfect way you would like to end it out. All right, ready? We're gonna take a deep breath this time. I wanna hear it too. Like 1, 2, 3, go. Hold. Exhale out. Get it off your chest. What were we doing there? That right there was a reboot of your nervous system. You had to get grounded and remove that state of fight or flight that we constantly find ourselves in for the last 400 plus years. Second workshop we're going to do here is affirmations. You see, my dad spoke hard to me growing up. My block spoke hard to me growing up. The military spoke hard to me growing up. America has spoken hard to me my entire life. Eventually, that's how I started to think. My inner voice was speaking just as hard. It's not how it should be. If anybody's going to speak softly to you, it should be you. So, we're going to do an affirmation real quick. Say, I am more important than the privileges I allow.
I am more important than the privileges I allow.
My character is more important than my accomplishment.
My character is more important than my accomplishments.
I am deserving of forgiveness and blessings.
I am deserving of forgiveness and blessings.
Masculinity is not a dirty word.
Masculinity is not a dirty word.
I am a man.
I am a man.
And I love me.
And I love me.
All you did right there was affirm the divine masculine in you. We cannot operate walking around believing that masculinity is toxic, especially for the younger boys, because if you're hearing that masculinity is toxic left and right all day, every day, eventually you're going to think that your existence is negative. We cannot allow that to happen. Now, as much of a mental health advocate as I am also a staunch fatherhood advocate. Any fathers in the house?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You hear how proud they were?
Yeah.
I love that energy.
Yes, sir.
So, I wrote a book called A Son with No Father is a Book with No Author. It's a memoir showing the Tuesdays that I've shared with my son that have helped form our bond. And the whole purpose of writing this book was to reframe the narrative of the absentee black father. That does not exist. We are present, we are there, and our existence and presence is meant to be humanized and no longer weaponized. It's coupled with a workbook called by the same name that I work with psychologists out of Georgia State University, and with that workbook, it allows you to address past childhood trauma and will help you form your identity narrative for your child. So that way they can see you as the person you are and not the title you hold. Because before I was dad or pops, I was Wario with a Wario mobile. Now, there's one thing I know is that no two snowflakes are alike, and neither are any of you. My entire purpose here is to teach you circumstances will happen in your life. And I just want you to be very cognizant and respond in kind, because impulsivity has never helped a situation. I want you to be thermostats, not thermometers. A thermometer can only tell you the temperature. Thermostat / man will control it. We are not victims of any environment. We control our environment. Now, if you're ready to go to church, say amen.
Amen.
If you're ready to go to church, say amen.
Amen.
Men. Man. You see, I am a man. But I want you to understand I'm talking about a man's man. I am a mother's boy, a father's pride, this woman's goddamn. A daughter's template, my son's architect. I am God's hands. I'm labor intensive, just not in that unit. I've been taken for granted whenever I do I've taken the damage you all hear in today's music, presented as if we're supposed to be buffoons, incapable and foolish. I am past mistakes, lessons acquired. I'm accountable for myself, absent of excuses. I am a man that's claiming his dignity at the risk of sounding hubris. Because brother, if I don't do this, then our sermon on the Mount may as well be muted. I've been mistaken for examples on reality TV. And I live in Atlanta. But as I just said, I'm a man and I've never seen that reality in me. I'm of the tribe of injustice. My absence speaks so much louder than my presence. That's why I don't shy when I'm with my children outside in public. If anything, I try to shine as a beacon above this 2023 age that always wants to place so much value in complaint. I am a man that will no longer mask his masculinity because it might be conveyed as vain. But let us not get it twisted. This power requires no praise. I am a man, the pillar of the pack, the leader of the pack, the cornerstone of my family that withstands every crack. I am a man that will happily take a bullet for your child. Why? Because cornerstones of manhood are empathy and humanity. I'm a man that nods his head in understanding. I love hard. I hate apathy. I build self-esteem while I raise a beautiful family. I am a man that bears his responsibilities on his shoulders until they strangle his neck. I am a man that has paid all of his debts, and I expect a return on my investment when I pay you proper respect. I am Sir. I'm not your N-word, I'm not your dude, I'm not your stereotype, and I'm certainly not your lie. I am truth, I am virtue, I am principle, I am important. I said I am life, I am direction, I am destined. I am that man that rubbed her belly while pregnant, stood back, ripped my balls, and told the world, I did that shit. I am not extinct. Nah, never that. I am distinguished. I am one of many, the voice for the quiet leadership. I am a man that will not be told that his definition is meaningless by any woman fed up with who she dealt with previous. I'm not your mistake. I am unapologetic for decisions you made. You see, he and I, we are not the same. I am dominant, I am prominent, I am confident. I am not that misogynist that looks at your body as his conquest. I am a man with 3 daughters and a conscience. Therefore, my character has to be more important than my accomplishments. I'm a man that's important, I'm not famous. Oh, I'm brazen. I'm not jaded. I'm broader than the pictures they all painted. You see, I make sense. I manifest potential in which every man in here could. Matter of fact, fellas, stand up for a second. Ladies, do me a favor and look around. And start clapping for the redefinition of manhood. Oh, thank you, James. I appreciate that.
That was extremely inspirational. Thank you for getting our nervous systems in order and teaching us how to work through that. That was amazing. One more time for Mario, please.
Okay, thank you all for participating and answering those informative questions. I'm excited to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have mental health and relationship coach Larry House. Attorney Brandon Ball. Real estate mogul and entrepreneur Garland Bennett. Google Executive and Director of Engineering, Mike Williams. Lead Pastor of the World Church, Jamel Johnson. Foster Doctor and mental health advocate David Daniels. Masonic Grandmaster, veteran and engineer Trenton Davis. Community liaison, psychology student Makai Cardenas. Actor, model, and entrepreneur Terrence Wright. And last but not least, psychotherapist Nicholas Hardy. All right, these amazing men will be providing a much needed discussion and dialogue surrounding questions that are necessary and relevant to Black men and mental health. Let's dive right into the conversation. The first question will go to Makai Cardenas. What inspired you to pursue a career in psychology, specifically in the mental health field?
I'll tell you. So I think I can think of a lot of reasons, but I'll say that behavioral health, mental health, we all have a wound. I think the thing about behavioral health or mental health is the fact that we hurt so deeply inside that we try and give people what we didn't have or that we were given. So necessarily what I give is love. What I give is love. I was given love, so I was raised with love. So therefore,
Behavioral health, I give love.
I don't. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
No.
The mic here. Hello.
There you go. Yeah, this is great. This is great. So yeah, I would say I've come from a long history of depression, anxiety. I've tried to take my own life multiple times. It's okay. I'm 26, so if anyone thinks that's too young, I'll tell you pain is generational. It starts when you feel it. No one can invalidate pain. So growing up with behavioral health, I will tell you that bravado breeds competition, and meekness builds community. So with all of us here, I would say with Black men, women, everything like that, we're all a community. We all feel something. We all felt something. I can't tell you what you're going through, but I know what it feels like to hit rock bottom. So that's why I'm in behavioral health. Because no one can tell me what I feel isn't what you're feeling, okay? No one can tell me what I feel wasn't the bottom. So no one can tell you what you're feeling is not the bottom. So, that's the answer to my question.
The next question is for Larry House. What do you think are the root causes or contributing factors to mental health disparities among Black men?
I believe that there's a lot of underlying factors, but to get to the origins, I think you'll hear us probably, speak on this time and time again. We kind of have to break some of these barriers and, ways we've been programmed to view, weakness or strengths that we have, and get to a point of vulnerability. Being okay and being comfortable with talking about things that bother us and it may impact us in a certain way. And I think us as Black men, we still struggle with that. It's definitely, it's a thin line right there with, feeling like we can trust individuals to have certain dialogue with. And, it's a true thing when we consistently feel like we can handle and take on every struggle and everything that we deal with. And we have to get to a point of understanding that we have to embrace individuals helping us with that, and we have to speak up. We have to understand how certain traumas and things that we dealt with are impacting us. So I think that's something kind of underlying with us because we have so many different traumas and experiences that we've dealt with. And they may not be directly with us, but it can be indirectly. We haven't processed it enough. So it's definitely something that we need to find more important. And, this is part of it today, having all us here, and we're going to continue to bring awareness to it because it's not going to happen overnight. It's something we're going to have to continue to plug in. And I think we kind of, as Black men, we're kind of reluctant. And we move kind of a little bit slow when it comes to this. But, it's just a level of awareness that we have to keep on bringing. And that's something that we have to continue to dial in, and it starts here, and we have to continue the movement.
Thank you so much. You can go ahead and clap for the next question is for Mike Williams. How have society's historical perceptions of Black men contributed to the fear and hesitancy they may feel when seeking help for their mental health?
Susan? Very good question. I think it was covered earlier. We are taught to be not soft. We're taught to be hard. We get spoken to as men. We're taught not to cry. We're taught not to feel. But what happens is we get in our emotions, and then sooner or later that gets held against us. Often, whether it's in a group of people, whether it's your spouse or your girlfriend, when as a man, when you express yourself, it gets held against you a lot often. So society has raised us to be, well, we shouldn't cry, and I think that was covered earlier. We shouldn't cry in certain situations. We shouldn't feel a certain way. We always have to be the strongest. But I think it was said as well, it's all right to cry. It's all right to have those emotions. It's all right to be in a space where you can kind of let go. So all those things actually matter, but society has taught us everything against all that. It's taught us to constantly be hard. It's taught us to constantly be strong. It's taught us to constantly be the person that everyone else has to lean on. So at some point, we need others to lean on, and we also need to be very transparent about how we feel. And I think that goes against everything society has taught us to this point.
Thank you so much. The next question is for Brandon Ball. As a Black male attorney, what are some unique challenges you have encountered when it comes to mental health and your representation of Black men in the judicial system?
So in America, we're a minority, right? But when I walk in the courtroom, I'm actually the majority. But most of the people aren't on the other side of the bar. And part of my job as a defense practitioner is storytelling. I gotta tell my client's story because nobody's the worst thing they've ever done, but they're called to face something that day. And so my job is, amongst other things, to educate the opposing party, educate the judge, educate my client, educate everybody about what this person's story is. And as a Black man in a criminal justice system, even though it's the best system that exists, there's still a lot of injustice that exists that we know all about. How do I translate that story? Because, I'm just being honest, the people who are dispensing a lot of the sentences, who are prosecuting cases, they don't look like us. They don't have their experiences, they don't have that background. So it's layered. When I'm introducing myself to a client, because I'm also a public defender, my client didn't choose me. So there's trust issues that exist on top of everything. Like when we see homeless people, sometimes we just see a homeless person. I see somebody potentially with a mental health issue. When I run across a client who has an extensive criminal history, I see, okay, what is his story? How did he get here? And how do I translate that? And then it becomes even more unique when I'm trying to tell a Black person's story to a white person who comes from a different experience. I'm not saying that they won't be able to relate, but if I don't tell that story correctly, if I don't even make an effort to get that story out, I'm losing half the battle. So I'm always constantly thinking, what is my client's story, and how did what they went through get them to where they are today, and why is that the case? And sometimes I'm able to get that across, and sometimes I'm not, but that's always the goal. It's always the goal, because we're not the worst thing we've ever done, right? I tell people all the time, it's not what you did, but they can prove that you did, but sometimes it's what you did, right? And then it's like, who are you? Who are you? What is your story?
Thank you so much. The next question is for Terrence Wright. What steps do you think could be taken to increase awareness and education about mental health among Black men and to remove the associated stigma?
All right. Well, first I would start off with saying that being able to recognize being vulnerable is strength. And in understanding that, you know, being vulnerable and taking the time to say, hey, I might not necessarily understand what's going on, but I want to talk to somebody. And that can be powerful. And just kind of to give you guys an example, there was a point in time I was in a relationship, and you know, the type of relationships I was used to seeing, they weren't necessarily good relationships. It was arguing in those, and in the midst of being in this relationship, it was so stressful that I began to lose my hair. And in that, you know, it started off the size of a dime. It was behind my ear. I would wear a hat. You know, it was, you know, I don't know what this is, but I'm a hide it. So I'm not gonna talk about it. And it grew, and it got bigger, and it got to the point I couldn't hide it. And I didn't associate it with the relationship that I was in, or the people that I was around. So in that, it got bigger, and I finally got to the point where I'd stopped and I was thinking to myself, what's going on? What are the things that are around me that are causing my body to respond in the way that it did? And finally I prayed, and I chose to remove myself from that situation. Remove myself from the people that were harming me, that I cared for. And just so happened within 1 month of me separating myself, my hair grew back. So I say all that, be careful with the company you keep that may keep you from recognizing being vulnerable. Might keep you from talking to somebody. So, you know, a lot of times as Black men, the people around us, oh man, nah, you good, don't do that. Nah, you hard, you're not gonna be soft. It's okay. So, and if those are the people around you, you know, might think about finding some other people. So.
I think those physical notes are really, really important for us to keep in mind. The body will tell you when something's going on stress-wise. The next question is for Garland Bennett. As a successful real estate mogul, how do you think socioeconomic factors such as access to resources and opportunities contribute to mental health disparities amongst Black men?
All right, if y'all don't mind me standing up, I need to stretch my legs. Mr. Reyes left us no room for error. It was good, it was real good. So excuse me, fellas, let me just sit here for a moment. I just wanted to stand up. One, if you look at my bio and everybody else's bio up here, you would think we are perfect. But I am broken. But what I don't want you to equate broken with is going through a hardship, being soft, or thinking that you're weak. We all are broken because we all are human. And when you look at other humans, they all are broken. So this is what I want you guys to leave here with today. First, you have to be the change that you want to see. And two, you have to save yourself first. Now, make sure in the midst of saving yourself first, I want you also to work on your humanitarian side by giving back. Giving back, right? So my story is a long story. I was raised poor, which, you know, a lot of people can equate to that. Maybe you can, maybe you cannot. But being raised poor, you go through so many different traumas. People screaming at you, your parents, they're going through hardship when they get off work. So they're dealing with their own trauma. So now you gotta accept that trauma because they're going through something. It doesn't have anything to do with you. But once you get older, guess what? That carries over to you. So you gotta ask yourself, am I gonna take that same trauma and carry it over to my kids? So again, is when I use the term, you have to be the change that you want to see. When you see it happening as you get older, don't say, I'm gonna transfer that same energy because I went through it. You ever hear somebody tell you that, hey man, I was bullied, but then they become the bully? Isn't that weird? Why is that? I don't know. But You have to figure it out. But my point is that you have to really be the change that you want to see and start making those changes. You have to get in the game. In order to make those changes, you have to get off the sidelines and get in the game. I always use this analogy. Anybody play football in here? Any football players? So in order to make plays, you have to be in the what? You have to be in the game. Most people that are talking talk from where? From the sidelines. In order to make plays, you have to be in the game. If you're not in the game, you cannot make plays. So I'm gonna leave y'all with this. Is as far as what I want you guys to leave from here today with is make sure when not only you see people that look like you, make sure you walk up to them, shake their hands, say how you doing, figure out what they're doing. Doesn't mean you have to be with who they are, but exchange information. When you walked up here today, when you got out your car, you walked past somebody, did you say good morning? Or when you was on the elevator and you was just silent with the person that's next to you that couldn't save your life if you fell out, did you say good morning or how you doing? This is my point. We have to normalize being nice to people. Because what if you on the elevator and the person that you're next to have to save your life because you just had a heart attack, but you didn't say anything to them? So my point is that we have to be the change that we want to see and stop making it all about you. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is for Jamel Johnson. In what ways do you feel your experiences as a Black man have shaped your understanding of trauma and resilience?
So I want to be very pointed. My experiences as a Black man. Matter of fact, give me that question.
Okay, no problem. In what ways do you feel your experiences as a Black man have shaped your understanding of trauma and resilience?
Okay. So my experiences as a Black man shaped a jaded picture of how to respond to trauma. Because as Black men, we're not taught to respond to trauma. Without being too lengthy, I think one of the problems is, and you brought it up about this 400-year fight or flight. Down south, we are a little bit different from our counterparts up north, because that slavery to sharecropping to Jim Crow to the civil rights movement, that was just 40, 47, 40, 50 years ago, right? My mom and dad met in a restaurant where she was a waitress and my dad was a busboy, and they could not enter in the front door. So I can pick up the phone right now and I can have a pulse of Black history. But as I think about it, my dad was raised by my grandfather, who was the grandson of a slave. So I'm only 3 generations removed from the plantation. So trauma that we see today, and we may not know it, but trauma is passed on. Trauma is pervasive. Trauma is passed on in that male seed. So if it's not dealt with, when the term is you're acting like your daddy, it's the truth. Because his DNA is in me, but not only is his DNA in me, his fears are in me. His failures are in me. His unprocessed trauma is in me. So I was never taught how to deal with trauma. I was taught to get up and keep moving. And in that getting up and keep moving, I continued the trauma that was experienced on the plantation. Because Big Daddy never got PTO. So a lot of what we experience as men, we didn't even know it's directly related to the plantation. They couldn't call in sick. They couldn't talk to anybody. They couldn't really trust those that they were working with because half of the people that were getting caught were being told on by the same people that were in the field with them. So a lot of what we experience has happened for generations and generations and generations. But now to your point, to where I'm at a space right now where I'm doing the healing work is because I got tapped in one of the most culturally sensitive times of our country to teach a course at Houston Police Department as a civilian instructor, building trust after trauma. And that course started 30 days after George Floyd was killed. And I had to stand before other police officers. And every police officer in the city of Houston had to take my class. And I had to teach them about our communities and why when you come into our communities, when your job is to protect and serve, we already feel like you're coming into our communities looking for a criminal and you're not looking to help us. I didn't understand trauma until I got on the other side and really started to see what trauma was. So now, that healing work that you're talking about, all of us, as Garland said, all of us have dealt with some type of trauma. But the most traumatic experience would be is that if we continue to allow the trauma to persist, that if we don't do anything, if we don't try to do any healing. Because now what happens is, I can't use the excuse of Big Daddy not going to see a therapist in 2023. Because now my son, Jalen and Adonis, they will now have the testimony of Jamel didn't go. And so my brother, Councilman Ed Pollard is here. We're part of the 100 Black Men. And our motto is what they seek is what they'll be. So the only way, as my t-shirt says, black on black healing, the only way black on black healing happens is that we first identify that we're broken and start to do the work to become whole. And then now the next generation is okay with saying, my daddy went and got some help, and I'm going to get some help too.
The next question is for Trenton Davis. How have your experience as a veteran and as a Black man influenced your perception of masculinity and self-identity?
Good afternoon. I read this question probably about 20 times. First of all, how many veterans do we have here? Nice. It almost seemed to be a trick question to me. And I say that because, as it's been said before, everyone's story is that of their own. Everyone's journey is that of their own. I come from a small country town right on the outside of Houston. And the military basically was used as an escape to get out of there. Most of the guys that I grew up with, the military was their way out. There were very few of my friends that chose school or college at first. And it wasn't my first choice, let's be clear. After thinking that I was a great athlete, blowing my knee, football was no longer a thing. So to me, failure was going back home. Failure was having to be back in my mother's house. That was not an option. So me and the recruiter literally tricked the doctors. I had knee surgery, I had scars. He told me how to lay on the table, what not to do. When they go to the back of the room to do the double walk, he's like, these old doctors here at the Med Center in Houston, Milton in Houston, they won't even look, they'll turn on, and they did exactly what he said. I stood on the wall, I never left the wall. They duck walk, came back, I was still sitting there. They looked up, checked everybody, good, passed, good. So, and I'm giving you a backstory so that you'll understand. It says, how does it shape my perception of masculinity and identity? The military emasculates you. The sole goal when you're going through in boot camp, I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this because day 2, the drill instructor said, for you white guys, this is gonna be the hardest thing you ever been through in your life. And these 2 white drill instructors, it's gonna be the hardest thing you ever experienced in your life. Why? Because you've never been told no. You've never been broken down. Minorities, I mean, they said it, black guys, Mexicans gonna get through this thing a whole lot better than you guys. And I thank God for my upbringing, the fact that I was rooted, in the church, the fact that I had, certain people in my life that tell me what to do, what not to do, be respectful, so on and so forth. Because if it wasn't for that, I could have easily fell into the lost ones. Get mad because somebody's in your face. Now I want to punch him, And I'm saying all this to say, it emasculates you to build you up as a unit. To turn around, it emasculates you again. Because even as a black man or a black young man, very intelligent, I went through boot camp, I graduated top of my class. I went to A school, I graduated top of my class. I was accelerated advancement to petty officer. My first day as a real Navy man, I was E4. I caught flack from the people that had been there before that had not achieved that yet, so it became something that they held against me. I was a push button petty officer. So I'm going through this, I'm away from home, I'm going through this, and I got people over here holding me down because I'm intelligent, because I chose to use this to take me somewhere else. I got my own people pulling me down because they're mad because I've been here 5 years, I ain't E4 yet. I got a chief that's over me saying, okay, and here's another thing, got in there within the first 6 months, I got a NAM. I had a training background, I went in there and created a whole training program for them. They gave Navy, Marine Corps Medal of Achievement, whatever. I had the chiefs, everybody. I mean, they made my life miserable, emasculated, to the point that I started getting migraines, like bad headaches, like debilitating headaches that I suffer from to this day. Took a whole thing that could have been a great career and made it an awful experience. But because of my upbringing, because of the things that I went through in life, because I had those things that now I know is trauma, but the same things that we hold on to and that makes us not as vulnerable were the things that made me be okay in that situation, if that makes sense. So that's why I say it seemed like a trick question to me, because all those things, all those bad things that we talk about now, and I had to address those things as a grown man, as a father. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to go back and reflect, like, dude, you messed up. Like, there's a whole lot about you that's messed up. I walk around, got some brothers from our organization, my mother in here. I walk around with a smile on my face every day. Clinically depressed. Pulling yourself out the gutter, willing yourself to get up and move throughout the day. So, I mean, I'm getting naked with you guys. I've been saying that since yesterday. This is my whole purpose. I'm getting naked with you guys, as uncomfortable as possible, because it's healing for me. It's work for me. And I'm in that process right now. So forgive me if I'm long-winded, but to answer your question, it did not help shape my masculinity. It almost took my masculinity away. It was the things that I grew up with. It was the church that was in me. It was the grandfather that, I didn't want to disappoint. It was those things that pushed me and created the identity that I could attach to. And I mean, as we said, those 400 years of all of that, slavery, Jim Crow, all that stuff. I mean, it's all bottled up in one, and that's the root of it, so to speak. We deal with the stuff on the surface. It's all surface. We put Band-Aids on it. Even the typical counseling, because my first study in college was to be a counselor. I wanted to figure out why is it I was so messed up. I wanted to figure out what made black men do what they do. What made my father be absentee. I wanted to know. That was my whole purpose of study. That was the whole reason I did it. And it took me, somebody said 41 years or something like that. It took me probably 41 years to get to a place to understand that, hey, you need to know this. You need to know this to be better. You need to know this to heal. You need to know this to even start unpeeling those layers that you need to fix. So, to answer your question, it did not.
It sure did.
All right.
Thank you so much. Your vulnerability is extremely inspirational, and just experiencing you say that it is therapeutic and healing for you to be vulnerable is really powerful. The next question is for Nicholas Cardi. What are some specific challenges or unique experiences that Black men face in regards to mental health and male sexual abuse?
That's a really good question. Yeah, and I almost want to look at these in two separate ways. First, let's look at the sexual abuse. So statistically, 1 in 6 men will experience or have experienced some form of sexual abuse. So it's more common than we may realize. But some of the challenges that they experience, number one is just the shame that comes about as a result of being taken advantage of. More times than not, it's by someone that you trust. And so that creates an entire disruption, to what you believe is true, to what you believe is normal. There's so many questions that come about as a result of that. And so that's a huge challenge. The second challenge is just the embarrassment and the disruption that comes when you do come forward. It's a complete, it just terrorizes a system. And as a result of that, a lot of times we just stay silent. If you were to come forward and say, hey, my uncle did this, then there's no way that the family unit can exist in the same way that it did before. Or if you say, hey, grandpa did this, or whomever it is, then everybody's relationship with that individual shifts, and because of that pressure, a lot of times, we don't say anything. And the last one is just people not believing you. Not only do you have this traumatic experience, but now it's compounded because your experience is invalidated because people question you. Well, what did you do? Well, are you sure? Are you doing this for attention? All of these different questions bring up a lot of the underlying issues that keep people from coming forward. So what ends up happening is you just suffer in silence. When it comes to Black men and some of the challenges that we face, I mean, it's pretty similar in that we do life in silos. Life is gonna happen to us all. Rich, poor, male, female, Black, old, young, life is going to happen. But I think for Black men in particular, on so many fronts, we're the only. You think about being a father, like who do you talk to? You think about being a husband, when you think about being in the corporate space, so much of our lives are done in isolation. And so when you take these issues that we all face and you compound that with solitude, it magnifies it. And so I think that's one of the things that stands out, particularly among Black men, is not only do we have the pressures of being a Black man, not only do you have the everyday, normal life, loss, grief that happens to us all, but then we also have the added challenge of doing it in isolation.
If it's okay, Cecilia, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. I think this topic is so important and so underrepresented in conversation. What would you recommend for someone if a mother or father had a child come to them and say that? What would be your recommendation as far as their response?
Yeah, my recommendation is you need to listen. You need to listen, you want to believe them, and you just want to create the space to just allow them to talk through what it is that happened. You don't want to come in and, well tell me, why would this? And because we try to process our own hurt through their experience. And again, that creates further separation, right? Not to go into the statistics, but obviously there's a lot in the news around sexual abuse, and some people say, well, why did you do this? But statistically, false reports are very small, very, very small, around 5%. All right, so again, I think the best thing that you can do is just listen, just provide that space for them to talk through it, ask them what they need. if you aren't familiar with it, as most of us aren't, I would definitely reach out to a professional and walk with them throughout that process or journey. And then obviously you want to create some distance between that individual and the perpetrator as well too.
Thank you. That was amazing. Our next question is for David Daniels. As a foster care advocate, what strategies or resources have you found helpful in addressing mental health concerns related to your experiences in the foster care system as a Black man?
We don't have enough time. I spent 16 years in foster care in the city of Houston, and so I've had the perspective and experience of living in shelters. I've lived in group homes. I've lived in foster parents. I have had foster parents. I've had good foster parents, not so good foster parents. What I advocate most about and what I talk about, and from my experience, is everyone. And when I was in foster care, everyone was paid to be there. So I was so confused on who actually cared. You know, I felt so alone, you know, and I tell people all the time, foster kids are the strongest individuals in the world, young people, because you throw us to the wolves, we come back leading the pack. But who's there for me? Who's caring about me? My teachers paid to be there. My foster parents paid to be there. Our therapists paid to counsel us. So when you get through all that, you be like, everybody's on the money grab. You know, like everybody's about their pockets and their money, but nobody, I'm over here drowning. I'm over here dying on the inside. And I learned to look for people who had no investment, well, no gain from it, just but for my success and for who I was as a person. And that was my teachers. Educators, you know, education is freedom. You know, no one can ever, and what I advocate and tell people is once it's inside of you, they can't take it out of you, okay? Because watch this, I need everybody to give me this answer. What's 2 + 2? When did you learn it? You don't even remember when you learned it because it was so, you know, because it's in you. So your education is your freedom, and once it's inside of you, can't anyone take it out. And so my teachers became my go-to people, my educators at school, and I did not like school, okay? But I understood that that was my safe place, that was my home. People who grow up with 2-parent households and come from loving families, their home is their home. They can't wait to see their parents, they can't wait to get home. My home was school. I can't wait to see my teachers. I can't wait to go to that cafeteria and be around people that actually like me and care about me. Also, I would say about my experience in foster care is I believe that foster parents, and well, let me just say this. You do not have to be a foster parent to influence and to change a young person's life that is in foster care. And everyone that is in foster care is not there because they were abused or neglected or parents who was on drugs. That's my story, but some people just come from small families. Some people's parents were terminally ill. You know, some people was raised by their grandparents' kinship and the grandparents got too old to take care of them. And some people's parents are incarcerated because life happens to us all and good people make bad decisions. But the whole idea of, you know, going into foster care and you just become a throwaway. I believe that you just become a throwaway. You're a throwaway kid. I lived out of a bag, okay? And it was either a trash bag or a Walmart bag because I was always on the go. I was always moving from foster home to foster home. So I didn't have any roots, you know? I think it's important for young people to have roots. And also I tell people when I advocate is that you have to, when you get foster kids and for whatever reason, you know, dealing with trauma and triggers, what I would tell people if you could, and because you're not a foster parent and because you don't work directly with them, but maybe they're in your church, you know, maybe they're in your school, you know, maybe they're at the sisterhood program that you go to, or whatever those cases may be, there's someone to the left of you, to the right of you that has an experience with a foster care, or have been in foster care, has experience with CPS, or, you know, they have a cousin or an uncle or someone who deals with it. What I would tell people is that try to find a balance in creating more good memories and moments for them. Because when you're dealing with trauma triggers, there's certain things for me that still to this day, like certain sounds, certain smells, you know, I'm triggered, I'm traumatized by it, I get nervous, you know, I get anxious. And so in foster care, I had these moments that these people had that stuck with me, that encouraged me, that pushed me and persevered. And like some other gentlemen, I was suicidal. You know, I tried to kill myself twice because I had looked at my life and said that this was too hard. I didn't sign up for this. I am out here in this wilderness by myself, but try to provide good moments. I had a child advocate. We need more child advocates. But I had a child advocate who took me to this fancy restaurant when I was 10 years old, and the restaurant was so fancy that they didn't even have salt and pepper on the table. I was like, well, I'm supposed to put some stuff on food. And she said, oh no, that's disrespectful to the chef. I said, lady, where have you brought me? But I still remember that moment from when I was 10 years old, and those moments that you have an opportunity to balance out and give young people good moments to hold on to, that will carry them on those dark days and those days that they feel like they have no one. My teachers and my counselors at school, they wrote me cards. At the end of the school year, I still have my yearbook. I still go back and look at those cards. I remember one teacher told me, you are your best enemy, or you're your worst enemy, or you could be your best champion. And I look at those things, and those things encourage me on the days that I didn't feel like I had support and my foster parents wasn't there. So balance out the good moments and the memories. If you hear a young person talking about, a foster kid in particular, talking about all the negative, then you be the person that come in and give them a positive moment. A simple thank you card, a simple how are you doing, a simple I thought about you when I was at the store and I picked this up for you, a simple conversation. I think that also too, we need to have mental health resources for foster parents. Because what I realized about my foster parents, I did not like those people. I didn't understand why would they take these children in and mistreat them, but they're human. And they were trying to navigate this life themselves. They're just adults, humans trying to navigate this life, and they thought they could do this, and then something happened while they was raising a foster kid, they lost their parent, they lost their loved one, their child started acting up. And so these are the things that they need support. So I think that we need foster parents to be able to have therapy for themselves. I think that anyone that deals with foster youth needs to be able to have that resource and have that outlet. Caseworkers need to go to therapy too. It needs to be paid for because their workload is heavy, you know, trying to see all these young people do these house visits and stuff like that. So those are the balance. I will say this in my closing is that Hebrews 11:1 tells me that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so all through my life, there was moments that I felt like I couldn't make it and I was going to give up, but then those moments of where people poured into me and planted seeds. And so I encourage you all are sitting in this room today because you are here planting a seed. You're planting a seed not only for your own mental health, but for somebody else's mental health that the University of God Alliance is going to allow you to cross paths with. So sometimes you don't get to see the fruition of your labor and your blessings and your peace, but you're planting a seed in someone's life, and someone else is going to come along and be the sun. And someone else is going to come along maybe 3 years or 6 weeks from now and be the water. So you all are planting seeds inside of me, and I'm going to take those seeds and I'm going to let somebody else come along and water them. So don't be discouraged in your good doing and planting your seeds. You don't always get to see it grow up to be this big tree, but someone else is going to come along and be the sun and the water.
Can we just give it up for our panelists and you all really came to give everything that you had, so thank you so much for your vulnerability. We're going to move into our second round of questions. You all will have 2 minutes each to answer each question. We'll start with Garland Bennett. In your opinion, why is it important for individuals, especially Black men in positions of power, to openly discuss mental health and create awareness around it?
Okay, this is I know when I answered the question the first time, we have 2 minutes, right? So, so to answer the question on the backside of mental health in general, so Mr. Reyes mentioned the aha moment. My aha moment started 3 years ago when my dad passed away and I became the executor of his estate. So that means I had to deal with family being disgruntled amongst each other, right? So I was always a high alpha male in my family and my brothers and sisters, where I was a workaholic still to this day. And I was just always going. But when my dad passed away, everything was just out of whack. And I was the head. So when my family started fighting against each other, I had a panic attack. So when I had the panic attack, I'm Mr. Garland Bennett, I'm hard, nothing can get to me. It just hit me out of nowhere. I never felt that in my life, don't ever feel it again. So went to the doctor, they told me this is what was happening. That was the very first time in my 47 years that I felt where I couldn't defend myself, so to speak. I just felt weak. So my point in saying that is after that moment, what I told you guys earlier in regards to saving yourself, that's when I knew I had to save myself at that point. Started getting help, I started meditating more. I've always meditated. I've always dieted. I've been dieting since I was 13. I'm a workout, I'm a gym, I wouldn't say a gym rat, but I'm a gym fanatic. So the main goal is making sure you take care of your well-being. One, making sure you eat healthy. Making sure that you talk to people. Making sure you get therapy. Now, going back, I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Tell me when my 2 minutes is up. I believe people always ask me, why did you change your diet? Let's talk about the government. The FDA approves everything we eat, right? So you have to take back your mental and your physical, meaning when you eat meat, it has steroids in it, right? So you probably ate a steak last night and you woke up with a bad attitude because what was in it? You don't have control of your mental imbalance. Even with salads, pesticides. So my point is that as you find those ways to change not only your diet, you find people to talk to, get therapy, start working on your diet, start changing all those things because it's affiliated with all your mental imbalances and you don't know it. But trust me, when you make those changes, it's gonna help you more than you know. Thank you.
Before we continue on, we're gonna take a quick pause. We have two very special guests here today with us. We have City Council Member Edward Pollard from District J, who is a proud product of Southwest Houston and who is so impactful in the community and has recently been re-elected because of his impact in the community. We also have from Commissioner Ellis's office, Natalie Nenes. Could I have you both please?
Good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. These are some very inspiring panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. My name is Edward Pollard. I am one of your Houston City Council members. It is an honor to be before you all today. This topic has really been feeding me as well, so I want to thank you all for your contributions, for your openness. I think as Black men, many times the first step is just having the awareness that there is trauma. There's things going on in our lives that we need to be vulnerable about, be open about, and then go seek help. I've been in that place myself many times to where I was stubborn for a long time, not wanting to take accountability and understand some of the issues that you're facing. But then you have that awareness moment where you know that being vulnerable is going to be the best for you. And I think everything that they've been talking about today speaks to that. But the second thing I want to mention is, even though we're talking about Black men's mental health, the women who have helped put this event together, and the women who are all around here who support Black men, who know how important it is to be alongside us in this journey for better mental health. And today, I want to recognize Ms. Camelia Harris and have her come forward. So as men, we're going through this journey. We're not in this alone. We don't have to just depend on ourselves and our other male counterparts, but it's the women that sometimes give us the most strength, and the women that are the most supportive. And so on behalf of the City of Houston, I have a certificate of recognition to Camelia Harris that speaks on behalf of the City of Houston, City Council District J office. It is my pleasure to present the certificate of recognition to Camelia Harris, Just Us MH Foundation, in recognition of your exceptional dedication and unwavering commitment to improving the mental health and well-being of Black men in our community. Just Us MH Foundation is a commendable initiative that has embarked on a multi-city tour bringing awareness and education to the critical issues of mental health care for Black men. Through your efforts, you have created a platform for sharing stories, providing access to valuable resources, and equipping communities with necessary tools to establish robust systems of support. By empowering and inspiring attendees to prioritize their mental health well-being and take proactive steps towards improving their overall mental health, you are making a significant and positive impact on our community. The City of Houston extends its heartfelt gratitude to Camellia Harris for your outstanding efforts in fostering a brighter and healthier future. Your work serves as a shining example of the positive change that can be achieved through collaboration, education, and advocacy. Well deserved. Thank you very much.
All right.
And before I leave, I want to give a huge shout out to my good friend, Jasmine Porter. She's doing amazing things in the mental health space for everyone. And I want to acknowledge your contributions and tell you that we really appreciate you. God bless you all.
Hi y'all, thank you for inviting Commissioner Rodney Ellis's office here today. My name is Natalie Minus and I'm an advisor for him. I'm a trained social worker, so being back in this space is making me question if politics was the right decision for me, because it has absolutely filled my cup. I am so grateful to be here. We have a resolution from Precinct 1. I'm just going to read the bottom portion of it, but it says, therefore be it resolved that as Harris County Precinct 1, we proudly join Just Us Mental Health Foundation on this special occasion as we celebrate the Black Men's Mental Health Conference. Precinct 1 celebrates and commends the organizers, participants, and supporters of the Black Men's Mental Health Conference for their dedication to promoting mental health awareness, fostering connections, and empowering Black men to prioritize their well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was amazing, and congratulations to Lady Harris. Okay, so continuing on with our programming, the next question is for Trenton Davis. In your opinion, how does the absence of a father or a male role model affect the overall well-being and development of a Black man or Black children? The second part of that question is, how can we change this narrative?
All right, 2 minutes. It's a lot on that. So, speaking from a personal standpoint, and like I said, once again, my mind is over analytical, and so I don't know what it is not to have a father, because, like I said, I come from a small country town. The village raised the kid. My grandfather was there, he was present, he never missed anything. And I was the product of 2 teenage parents. So that was the thing. And as you know, our culture, our community, when situations like that, we band together. So what ended up happening is I grew up with my mother. And she got out of school to have me, went back to school after she had me. So we're talking about that trauma. You know, as a 4-year-old, you don't understand why your mom was leaving. You don't get that. All you know is mama not there. So I had the same issue with daddy not there. So, but by having that village, that the grandfather, the uncles, I was a good student, I was a respectable young man. I had people vying for the opportunity, athletes, or the coaches were there. Everybody wanted to be in my life and be present. And I think that's how we change the narrative. You know, we have to take that, and first of all, let's talk about that false narrative as Black men not being there. Statistics shows that is BS. Let's be clear. They've been telling us that for years, and we bought into it and we believe it. Now, what I will tell you is, you have that one indecent Black man and those 7 baby mamas. That's the same one man and 7 different women. So it seems like, but it's the same dude doing the garbage. But I know this because when the first time I heard this, I looked around me, and at the time I was a single parent. I was raising my kid with the help of my family. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, how is this so? I looked at my best friend, he was a black man raising his kid. I looked at all the people around me and I saw black men present in their children's life. So I couldn't, it made it hard to accept that was real. So let's stop buying into these false narratives. Let's stop regurgitating and being parrots of stuff that we're told. You know, look into it. Google is free. Do the research. You know, stop telling people that that's what we do, because that's not what we do. If you look into it, if you do the research, you see that we are leading the pack right now as being present in our children's life. But how we change that narrative so that they can see is you can be present in somebody else's life. You know, I heard, you know, we talked about foster care, it takes a village. That's where we come from. We come from a place where it took a village. I'm not talking about last generation, I'm talking about the kings and queens where we come from. So my answer to that is be present, not only in your kid's life, but be present in your community. You know, be present in someone else's life. So I can't relate to not having a father, because like I said, I had a wonderful father.
That's amazing. Happy for you. The next question is for David Daniels. We're living in times where social media plays a significant role on the evidence of life. How can the media and pop culture play a role in promoting positive mental health messages and destigmatizing mental illness among Black men?
The media, social media, the media is the devil, okay?
Okay.
They can't. The media can't. We have to do it. It's up to us. My grandmother used to say sometimes the only time people will see God is when they see you. So the only time certain people or even certain groups of people will see about the importance of mental health is through you. You are on the ground, you're the game changers, you're the champions, we're the champions, we said it. So the biggest thing that we can do is don't lean on social media, don't lean on the media to tell us or show us what it looks like. We're going to be the voices, we're going to be the champions of change, and we're going to be the ones to pay it forward. I use social media, and I'll tell people, if you use social media, because we all here struggle and our mental health, sometimes it's 100%, sometimes it's 2%. But what I try to do on social media, because Mr. Mario said it very well, you know, we indulge in things and we try to do things to cover up other things, I try not to indulge in that on social media. I try to follow a lot of encouraging things. I try to, you know, I send out encouraging things. I try to follow all the inspiration and all the self-help. And though I know that the power is inside of me and I know that I'm good and I'm going to make it, but some days I wake up and I don't know if I'm going to make it. Some days I wake up and I feel heavy burden. And so I don't use social media and that platform of trying to better my mental health or encourage people to because there's so much out there. There's so many narratives being told, and as he said, there's so much false narratives out there. So I encourage us to just be the voices. We talked about the veterans in the building. Now we all veterans. We're mental health veterans, okay? We are still here. We're surviving, and some of us are moving from surviving to thriving. So you continue to be the champions of change and go forth back into your communities, into your families, into your respective places, and tell them what you learned today, and also use what you learned today to help yourself to be stronger for tomorrow.
Excellent. The next question is for Brandon Ball. How do you advocate for improved mental health support within the legal profession, particularly for Black men?
Can you say that again?
How do you advocate for improved mental health support within the legal profession, particularly for Black men?
You let people know you need it. You start with that, right? You gotta let people know what's going on. You gotta be out here telling people who you are. So a lot of times in a lot of events, when you think of the criminal justice system, you think of the DA, you think of the police, but a lot of times the people representing the citizens who have had the conversation. And it's not anybody's fault. It's 30 years of law and order. It's television shows. It's the way we're viewing things. It's the news. it's people being like, man, that person should go to jail unless it's your cousin, then you know the real story, then now it's different, now it's personal, right? Nobody wants to need me, right? But when it's time to need me, I understand it. And so it's like, going back to what I was saying earlier, telling a story. But us practitioners have to do our part to let people know we're here, what we need, what our clients need, and why it's important. Always advocating, always pushing. Before 2019, the Public Defender's Office was 30 people. 2019 came, it became a little more liberal on the county commissioner side. They leaned into indigent defense and the need for criminal justice reform, and also you started to see changes. You started to see more money. You started seeing more money for mental health. You started seeing more money for prevention. So part of our story is saying, hey, we need to be at the table as well, not just the judges, not just the police officers, not just the DAs. We need to be at the table, and these are the things we need. So that's how we advocate.
Thank you so much. The next question is for Nicholas Hardy. What steps can mental health providers, community leaders, and allies take to empower Black men to prioritize their mental well-being and overcome the fear of seeking help?
Yeah, I think spaces like this, are a great example. Truthfully, I think proactively having the conversation and not reactively responding to situations is one step. But the truth is, people, you kind of have to come to it on your own. And so I think we have to be careful to not push people away by trying to force it on them. I think the more healthy we are, the more of an example we become to other people. And again, just creating that safe space, because people will come to a friend, they'll come to a brother, or aunt, or uncle, whomever, before they can reach out to a therapist. And so I think just creating that welcoming space and saying, hey, have you considered this, or have you explored that, or this is what it's done for me personally, is the best way to encourage it. Otherwise, you can push people away by trying to force it on them.
I agree 100%. It's the invitation. Okay, the next one is for Jamel Johnson. How can the church work collaboratively with mental health professionals and organizations to ensure that Black men receive appropriate and culturally sensitive support?
2 minutes, huh?
2.5 minutes.
2.5, all right. I think the church can kind of take the step that I have taken, right? I know here it lists me as being the lead pastor of the Word Church. But in my 9 to 5, I'm the executive director of the African American Male Wellness Agency. And that's the health and wellness arm of the National Center for Urban Solutions. And so every day, my job is to try to enhance the quality of life for African American men and their families. I think one of the things that the church has to do, so now let me jump back on the other side, because I am a pastor, I think it's easy for me, Garland, I'm not on the sidelines, I'm in the game, so I can talk about the players. Oftentimes, players hate when they are criticized by people who have never played. So because I'm on this side, the first thing that we have to do in church is we have to stop wanting to put oil on everybody's forehead and start to really be real with some real issues. I think that we have to, and while I know that the church has an amazing place in our community, I think we have to be just as much of a promoter of clinical therapy as we are about Christ. You can have both of them. As a matter of fact, you need both of them. I need the religious side of it so I can figure out my spiritual direction, my spiritual path, but I also need somebody that can give me some practical steps. Because if the only thing that I'm doing is giving you hope, but I'm not giving you a how, I am not helping you come out of what you are in. So I believe that it is important, and I think the pastor probably needs to go to a therapist first and then champion it from the pulpit. And then now, once the parishioners are able to see that their pastor is not living up to the stigma, and they are now championing it, then now you will have the parishioners to follow. That's why politicians go to churches when it's election time, because they know that if pastor allowed them to come to the pulpit, then he's sanctioning it. So just as you let this politician come, you need to let a therapist come as well. So I really believe that it's a marriage between the church and the clinic. And I think that that's the only way that it happens, because other than that, we now are trying to pray away something that we really need to work through.
Give that man
Mr. Johnson, I do believe that was the answer of the event. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next question is for Terrence Wright. How can we create a safe and inclusive space for Black men to openly discuss and address their mental health concerns without fear of judgment and stigma?
I think it starts with the conversation. The hardest thing to do sometimes is just have the conversation. Now in that, we're having platforms like this where we want to normalize having these conversations. But for myself, sometimes, you know, growing up, I didn't have a reference for that father figure. I didn't have a reference for somebody to tell me, hey, nah, we're not gonna do that, we're gonna go this direction. This is gonna be a better direction for you. So sometimes, you know, being able to create these platforms where, you know, these young men have a reference of seeing somebody else do what's right, and making that a normalized conversation, and it's popular to, hey guys, there's this mental health conference, we're gonna go check this out this weekend, and getting your brothers that are like-minded, it's not gonna be for everybody. And also knowing and having those conversations that even if you can't touch and bring everybody, that you can still plant a seed. And having that seed planted, and just to give you an example, we do mental health conferences, just finished one at Morehouse. And at the end of that conference, there was a gentleman, and he came and after everybody was gone, he came and spoke, and he said that he was lonely. And he had talked to several other people, and in those conversations, everybody was giving him the same advice. And he was upset, and I did not have the words to help that young man at that moment in time, but I gave him encouragement and told him that I was there if he needed to have that conversation. And sometimes our job is not to alter somebody's path, but just to let them know that somebody's there and somebody cares. So when we have these platforms like this, that's what it's all about. And we actually tried to reach this young man, we couldn't find him. But a month and a half later, through email, this guy reached out, and he just wanted to thank us for having that platform there. And you're not always gonna see everybody that you touch. You're not always going to be able to have recognition or confirmation that you planted a seed. But just know that you should continue to be consistent, walk in love, and keep the people around you who want to see you be successful. You know who those people are, and you know the ones who aren't. And, you know, be strong in that, and be vulnerable in that, and having platforms like this. I do mentorship, so guys, if you like to box and you need an outlet to get that outlet at, you can do those in all kinds of forms. Sometimes it's the gym, sometimes it's speaking to a professional, because all advice ain't good advice. Make sure you're talking to the right people. And just having platforms like this so we can start the conversation.
Thank you. The next question is for Larry House. What are some commonly overlooked or misunderstood aspects of mental health that you believe should be discussed more within the Black community, and how can we encourage open conversations about? Can you hear me now? Good. Okay. I'll repeat the question. What are some commonly overlooked or misunderstood aspects of mental health that you believe should be discussed more within the Black community, and how can we encourage open conversations about mental well-being amongst Black men?
I think for starters, I think we have this notion that mental health and therapy is a bad thing, or something's wrong with you. You know, and I think we need to continue to preach the gospel and just let people understand that that's just a tool. Like, therapy is a tool to help you address how you feel about things and navigate through these situations, you know, because it's a day-to-day process. Like, we're all up against it, and we're all like continuing to try to improve within ourselves.
You know, a bunch of these gentlemen are, you know, kind of spoke on how we're broken at times, you know, and it's okay to be that way. But the biggest thing is to have that level of awareness and have a conscious effort towards continuing to improve yourself. So I think that if we continue to just have certain resources and, you know, venues like this, and, you know, just kind of simplify it at times, and it's like you don't have to come hot-headed. You know, find someone you're comfortable with speaking with. You know, definitely the network of people that I have and individuals that I talk to consistently. It's all about safe space. It's all about, you know, no judgment and talking about any and everything. And at that point, it kind of gets you to this comfort level that, you know, you're able to just kind of speak on things that may affect you from day to day, because life isn't easy. You know, we handle a lot, we try to endure a lot, and we try to have it with this stoic behavior. You know, and we kind of get past that and just try to do it within our circles, because sometimes it just, you know, just speaking with one or two people or just one person, you know, then it kind of opens your lens to, okay, all right, I need a more in-depth look on things that impact me. So I know within our community, sometimes, like I said, we have to kind of be, you know, start a little slow or just kind of open up things that doesn't ultimately seem as if you're going straight into therapy. You know, and then you gradually understand what's important to you and how you navigate through these struggles.
The next question is from Makai Cardenas. How do you envision using your psychology education and knowledge to positively impact the mental health outcomes of individuals from diverse backgrounds, including the Black community?
To be fair, nothing from psychology taught me that. I would say it taught me how to think about it in a rational way. And depression or anxiety is not rational. What you feel is not necessarily rational sometimes until it's rationalized. So I would say my journey through psychology led me to social work. So I no longer, well, I graduated with my degree in psychology, but mostly what I do is social work. So I would say what it will do, or what it did for me, was allow me to find spaces to talk to people. And that's really all it is. I had to find myself in a way that took me apart from ration, because I used to think like, this is irrational for me how to feel, like depression shouldn't feel like this, or I don't want to feel like this, and things like that. I had to have God tell me I was worth it. And that's what I started doing for other people. I had to start telling people they're worth it, because someone told me I was. So necessarily, that's what I was doing.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is from Mike Williams. What actions or initiatives do you think would be effective in promoting mental health awareness and support within the Black community?
I think someone said it earlier, to have platforms and outlets like these. I think also just having champions, people that are willing to step forward like Camellia and others that are willing to put on platforms like these, have men like these up here that are willing to openly talk about our experiences and then some of the things that we go through. I think in a Black community, just like a church, everyone has to be on board. It takes a village. That's first and foremost. But I also think you got to go back to yourself. You can look at so many people, so many things in terms of how you get help. But sometimes you just have to be selfish. Sometimes you have to focus on you. Sometimes you have to think about you first, be good to you first. Because a lot of us, we get pulled in so many different directions. So many people want us to do so many different things. And you can have an impact on your mental health, trying to help so many different people, family included. Sometimes they're the worst people, quite candidly, in terms of family. But someone talked about diet earlier. Sometimes it's not just about the food you eat, it's the people too. Just like you gotta get rid of bad food, you gotta get rid of bad people and take in the wisdom and the thought process of good people. So when you talk about what we can actually do, I think what you do first is focus on you. Be a little bit selfish. Damn if anyone cares about that you're being selfish. But you can't help anyone, your children, your family, your relatives, unless you're right first. And then after that, you can look at community outlets, you can look at community platforms, and you can find those champions. But I think everything starts with you first. And then you can spread your wings from there and you can get different support from everywhere else. But if you're not strong enough where you feel you need help, find those outlets to find that champion. Because sometimes there's a champion you don't know about, but be willing to open yourself up a little bit to someone that can actually guide you in the right direction. And I think a lot of folks here have conveyed that. They opened up to someone and got directed in the right direction.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you so much. Can we give our panelists a round of applause? Oh, got it. Okay. So first of all, we want to thank you all for sharing all of your perspectives. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your wisdom that you shared with us today. At this time, we are going to move into some questions that the audience anonymously asked. If you feel called to answer the question, just raise your hand. The first question says, I'm so angry at my past and at my family and at everything. How can I stop being angry?
I'll take that.
Go right ahead.
I just got through this. I will take that. Hello. I just got through anger. Okay. I just got through letting things go and realizing that I would say I used to worry a lot, and I would ruin days before I got the pleasure of living. So I would necessarily say I was worried so much about tomorrow and everything, and I'm not even guaranteed tomorrow, I'm not promised. So why be angry about some things I can't experience yet, or things I'm experiencing now that don't affect tomorrow? Like your analogy about the snowflake. If I fail a test, it doesn't mean my house burned down. If my house burned down, it doesn't mean my family's sick. If my family's sick, it doesn't mean I can't feed myself. So it's those snowflakes we kind of have to take account of and also let go. We have to let go because anger has no place in love. I would say evil exists because love exists. Love exists because God exists. So keep love in your heart. That's all I'm saying.
I want to add to that real quick. I just want to say, given someone who 16 years in foster care and went through a lot, well, two things that I live my life by. Number one is forgiveness, is accepting that the past could be no different. So would I would like to went to Harvard? Yes. Would I would like to have a 2-parent household, picket fence, and a nice little dog? Yes. But forgiveness is accepting that the past, my parents were going to be who they were going to be, my experiences were going to be my experiences, and I've really lived that for many, many years. The second thing I'll tell you is, for that person in that question, it's a moment. Don't let a moment of anger, don't let a moment of trauma, no matter how hard it is you pick yourself up, but don't let a moment rob you of your future. If I had to let that moment at 15, walking down the oncoming traffic to kill myself, had robbed me of the future that I have, I wouldn't have went to college, I wouldn't have graduated, I wouldn't have traveled the world, been able to say I've been to Italy, I wouldn't have done the things that I've done in this life. And though those moments were really, really dark, and some days I couldn't see tomorrow, don't let a moment of what somebody told you couldn't do, don't let a moment of what your parents did to you at 14 or at 7, don't let a moment of what your ex-husband, ex-wife did to you 5, don't let that moment hold you hostage. I've lived my life that way, and I'm blessed to not let a moment, anything that I have, I get mad about it, I cry about it, but don't let a moment rob you that your future will not be better, that you will receive love 10 times over, and that you'll be in a space to be able to walk past somebody that you couldn't stand and still say, God bless you, and speak to them, or you know that your job, don't let a moment on a job rob you that you won't be doing something that you're passionate about and getting paid twice over for, rob you of your future. Don't let a moment rob you of your future for that anger.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the person who chose to submit that question. we have 3 more questions from the audience. We are getting close to time, so we're gonna keep it to about 1 minute each for these answers. The next one is there a platform for Black men to do this with their sons? Come on, Mario.
How you doing? My wife and I have a nonprofit organization called Manifest Destiny. We bring art programs and parenthood programs to underserved communities nationwide. One of the programs is called Kingdom Son. It partners the book and the workbook that I mentioned during my keynote to help humanize the experience, so that way they realize that before I was dad or pops, I was Mario, right? And in sharing your vulnerabilities and your past with your children, it helps build and strengthen those opportunities for communication. So if you would like, see me afterwards, and I would love to bring it to Houston as well.
Thank you.
And just one more thing to that last question. Obsession is a disease and acceptance is the only vaccine. The moment that you accept that you are your beliefs, you can let the past go.
And I also have a foundation, the You Rise Foundation, and this summer we're putting on a program that is for sons and fathers and daughters to come into the boxing gym and get that quality time while learning how to communicate and share each other's feelings. So if you're interested in doing that, I'm actually located here in Houston, and you can come and grab my information if you're interested in that.
One other thing, our organization, our Grand Lodge, we're currently working on creating well, we have a foundation already, but part of what we're doing in 2024 is we're creating a platform to where we have the fathers, sons, uncles, whatever, bringing all of the young men together to go camping, Brother Foley's property. So we're gonna go camping and we're gonna create this platform to make it comfortable for them to talk to us, to be able to share their experience. And before we leave out, part of the thing that we're doing, we're gonna sit down and just let them know this is a safe place. We can talk about anything. When we leave the campground, we're gonna leave it there, but we're gonna continue to help you work through whatever the problem is. And I'm glad I'm here because we got some good therapists that we can link up with and invite them out, so this is a great thing.
That's amazing.
All those brothers back there in the purple, if you can go get information from them, they're here, that's what we're doing.
Everything we need in this one building for everybody in their questions. That's amazing. This third question is going to be, what do you do if you're in a relationship with someone who has trauma? How do I support them?
Hey, this is that black man thing right here.
All right, reason I chose to answer this question is been in a relationship. I've been married for 22 years. Being married 22 years, anybody been married 15 years? 20 years? So you guys will be able to relate. So being married for a long time, you go through different phases of marriage. There's verbal abuse, physical abuse, whatever you want to call it. So to answer your question is transparency, sitting down, communicating is very important to making sure you get help. Back to what I guess someone mentioned earlier in regards to making sure that you don't let your ego get in the way, because sometimes you fall into a space where you think it's okay because it's been happening for so long, and then you become adapted to it. So you have to pick yourself up, figure out how to get help, but also make sure the person that's doing it to you get help. If they don't want to get help, then you have to get far from them as fast as possible. Don't get stuck with that person that's doing it to you, because you will either become that person or think it's okay, and they'll think it's okay because you're staying there. So I'll leave you with that.
And if I can just give it to my brother Garland, if I can add this as well, be empathetic. And if it is truly, because your question was if you are in a relationship with somebody that has trauma, you're in a relationship with them. I think what could make it even more traumatic is that going back to the conversation that you made or the statement that you made about when somebody comes and says that they have been sexually abused. When you began to downplay it or you began to push it down or you began to act as if what they are experiencing is not true, then you become an added part of that traumatic experience. And so now if we are in a relationship, we're in this thing together. So I believe that while we are not necessarily clinically trained, if we're going to be in this space where we do life together, I'm not going to allow you to experience this amount of trauma and not at least attempt to lend myself to you. So that can just be a listening ear. That can just be creating a space that when they have that traumatic experience, that you don't try to push them through that experience to tell them that they have cried enough or they have grieved enough or it's not happening, but give them that space to work through it. Because I think sometimes there's a book called The Body Keeps Score. It's by Bessel van der Kolk. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. But he talked about trauma, and he talked about trauma is so pervasive that you can smell something, you can hear something, you can see something on the television, you can hear a song, and it takes you right back to that space. And so if you're really in a relationship, and I think that may have to really be clearly defined. Because if it's just a situationship, you probably don't have enough patience to deal with that person. But if you are in a relationship, and let's flip the words, that relationship is real, you will stay there and help them heal.
Appreciate all of you being present today, sitting here witnessing this dynamic exchange and dialogue with these men. And I just think it's important that we know that it's important for us to remember that mental health doesn't discriminate, right? It doesn't have a face. It looked like my father, 6'5", don't curse, don't smoke, don't drink, gentle giant. It looked just like him on July 21st, 2019. So it's important for you to understand that mental health is the person next to you, behind you in the grocery store. It does not discriminate. That's very, very important to understand. However, we must recognize also that Black men face unique challenges when it comes to mental health: structural racism, systemic and social expectations, and cultural barriers that prevent them from seeking help or receiving proper care. So today and every day going forward, I actually pledge for you to continue this fight to help break down the barriers and to educate yourselves. Education is the one thing that I learned that can never be taken from you. So it's important that you educate yourself. It's important that you know and you get a true understanding of what mental health disparities is, where we rank in the understanding of mental health. Mental health facilities, there's a lack of it in our entire world. I live in Atlanta, and oftentimes when I'm downtown, I'll ride by and say, wow, that's mental health 101 right there. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not just here in Houston, it's everywhere. So we must advocate for increased access to mental health services. We must dismantle the stigma that's attached to suicide. That's very important. And we must foster a culture of empathy and understanding. I like to say when I experience, my siblings aren't here today, they usually are, but my mom is here. I'm not sure if she's here. Oh, she's in the back. So 5 siblings by my mom and dad, so all of her children were by my father. And I remember when I lost my dad, I didn't know what tomorrow looked like. And I just was going through it, right? Pride and ego wouldn't want me to go to counseling, but I decided to. And I remember when it was heavy, I felt like I was suffocating. I was dying alive. And I remember I called my uncle. His wife is here, my Aunt Candy, and I said, Unc, I can't make it. And he said, well, you have to make a conscious decision if you want to live dead or live alive. And on that day, I decided that I wanted to live alive. And once I made that conscious decision, I was able to bring this to you today. I tried to go real simple. I tried to do it sooner than expected, but God said no. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna create an app so that, you know, individuals that look like my dad, standing 6'5", who has that pride and ego, he didn't want to go to counseling, he can just use an emoji to give indication of what he was feeling and what he was experiencing. But God said no, he said gather. And so I made that conscious decision to listen in obedience, because obedience takes you far. And I was obedient to the fact that he said gather. Now, I didn't know how it was gonna come about, but I know that in prayer and understanding and faith, any door that he opens, he's gonna open wide enough for me to walk through. And so I listened and I decided I'm gonna put on a conference where men can talk and be heard and their voices are not overshadowed. Someone else is not telling their story. The news media is not giving a depiction and a narrative that is not true, right? And so I put on this conference so we can witness kings speaking to kings and kings hearing from kings without the women's voice overshadowing it. Because you put us in a room, 9 times out of 10 our voices are louder, but it's not enough. Our men are not just baby daddies. They are the head of our households, despite what society wants us to think. They are valued. You are needed. We need you. It's important. Our children need you. It's important for our children to have their fathers present. And so I challenge you today to take this day and every day going forward to be a witness and an example of how we can eradicate suicide, how we can start breaking these barriers of mental health disparity, and how we can change the narrative of what they, and the picture that they paint for our Black men. So I thank you, I appreciate you, I love you, and I thank you for being here today. Thank you so much.